this is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
There are many dangerous and unhealthy coping mechanisms that one can engage, searching for that ever-elusive peace amongst the madness, always at the tip of your fingers, but slightly out of reach. A technique may be found for a brief moment that turns out to be unsustainable. In times of desperation, we will grab at anything that brings relief, never really sure if this fix is permanent or just a band-aid. A brief respite in a time of chaos not only calms the body, but calms the mind. As the world seems to move at 1,000,000 miles per hour, to sit in solitude for a moment has an incomprehensible value. The search for peace often can be found in the simplest of amenities. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Falace, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here, and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and now you can join. Follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to. On this episode of the Suffering Podcast, this is a gentleman I've been following on social media for a very long time because I'm really into what he's doing, and I want to welcome Sean Abrusci. We're going to talk about something that every first responder is intimately tied to, and that's the suffering of coffee. But if you think this episode is just about coffee, this ain't just about coffee. But thanks for coming in, Sean.
All right, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
This is going to be a real good one, so hang on to the end, and you're going to find out exactly what Sean's doing because it's ultra important. But before we get into anything, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as police, and we certainly don't trust anybody as podcasters, but we do trust the guys over at Toyota Hackensack. So go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car. So, Sean, you've listened to a couple episodes.
Yep.
Each week we take a question from our audience. This one comes from, and I love this name, Philo Sophie. So as in philosophy. When you're alone, what do you think about? I thought it was the most to-the-point question, the simplest question, but it was, I thought about it after I read it. I'm like, wow, that's a really good question. So when you're alone, you're a police officer, you sit in a car, you're alone a lot, what goes through your mind?
Well, being a police officer and running my own company at the same time, my brain is always constantly going, whether it's going to be trying to learn or trying to figure out what my job is at that time. That is definitely a question I guarantee I'm going to go home and I'm going to sit there in my silence like, what am I thinking about right now?
Mm-hmm.
You know? But I think it's really just what is my next sense of purpose I'm going to go to is what is the next thing I have to do? Because I don't really shut off often.
So it's there. You have the moments when there's nothing, and I think for a lot of people, it's very difficult to be trapped inside your own mind, to have that difficult conversation with yourself. When I do my best thinking, I do two things every day. I meditate for 5 to 10 minutes, and I run. So during my runs is when I usually do my best thinking in my alone time, because I run very early in the morning. And the things and thoughts that go through my head, they are so fast and they are so concise, because I'll take a problem and by the end of the run, whether it's a 3 to 5 mile run, I'll take it and I'll work through it, each individual part. And there's always a topic of it, but I'm always able to come to a logical conclusion. But what I think about is my purpose, my direction. You know, I do a lot of different things here outside of the show. I have my family, I have my job, I have my travel, and I'm always very conscious of, am I doing the right thing? Am I on the right path? Do I have the right purpose? The worst thing in the world is succeeding at the wrong thing.
Right.
I want to make sure that I don't succeed at the wrong thing. I want to succeed at the right thing. So I'm constantly reworking that in my head. And I also got to make sure that I have a purpose on what I'm trying to do. We spoke about this a little bit off air. I hate the word mental health advocate. I hate it. It turns my stomach because you're bringing awareness to it. Well, guess what? Cops are aware that there's a problem. We're aware. So what are you going to do with that awareness? You got to make sure you're doing something.
Right. And I think that's very important too, because I think purpose is, we get brought up saying, hey, this is your purpose in life. Like your purpose in life is to, for my case, I grew up thinking my purpose in life was always to be a Marine. Well, then once I went to the Marine Corps, like I knew from a very little kid that I was going to be a Marine. Once I joined the Marine Corps and it was my time to get out, I was like, oh, shoot. Like that was my purpose. Like I was always told this is my purpose to be a Marine. Like that is in one sense is like almost I hate saying failure, but it's almost like a failure as far as parenting goes. It's saying, hey, this is your purpose. Your purpose in life is to bring smiles in people's faces. Your purpose in life is to be a father. Your purpose in life is to be a student or etc. When that purpose goes, it's up to you to find that next purpose.
So the funny thing is with police work, that happened to me. I went to work one night and I never went back because that was the night of my shooting.
Right.
I put my purpose into police work. And here's
your life.
Yeah, that's all it was. Like everything revolved around police work. I never expected it to end, especially end as quickly as it did.
And not in your terms.
And not on my terms, which really hurt me. You know, I couldn't even prepare for that next step. I just was thrown into it.
Yeah.
Here's what I found by the way that I left police work. Your purpose has to be in something that is totally immovable, unshakable, and never ending. Whatever that looks like for you. I know what that is for me right now, but it is definitely not police work. It's definitely not podcasting. It's definitely not going out to speak about mental health. That is not my full purpose. My purpose is to be the best, well-adjusted, kind human being I can become, and it has a lot to do with my faith.
I definitely agree with you, but I also partially disagree with you. Because to me, I think purposes are ever changing. I think purposes are like a chapter in a book. You might flip that page, you're in that chapter of that book, and that purpose might hit you right in the first page of that chapter, and you're gonna be like, okay, this is my purpose. You're gonna roll with it. But like that police, like when you were in law enforcement, that ended, and you need to find the next purpose, right? When you flip that page and you start that new chapter, that purpose might not hit you to the end of that chapter.
Well, it hits you. It definitely is a guerrilla tactic, but my concept of that is you got to think of it like an umbrella. And I'm not trying to be adversarial or argumentative. No. So it's like an umbrella. Yeah. So that whole umbrella, that is my purpose. And then I'm able to be everything underneath. Like I'm a father, I'm a husband,
yes.
I'm all that stuff underneath. But this stuff on top, this is never going away. Spouses, divorce happens. Yeah. Children, they grow up, they leave. Right. There's fractured relationships. There's all sorts of stuff like that. So that stuff is changing as well. But all those little purposes that you're talking about fit underneath my umbrella. And that's the where I'm talking about. So I put my full energy into the umbrella, and it gives me the freedom to be all those things underneath.
Yeah, no, very well. I definitely actually agree with that one. It is hard when we start talking about these purposes, because I do think, like how we started, like people put so much emphasis on like, this is my purpose.
Yeah.
My purpose is to be a cop. My purpose is to raise my kids. Kids grow old and now they leave, or like I said, you get a divorce, like your purpose is to be a great husband or wife or whatever, and you're gone. They struggle. That's a struggle. You don't know what's going to happen. You can't put all those eggs like, this is my purpose, when you have that umbrella like you're talking about, where you have multiple purposes. Bring them all together.
And that umbrella is different for everybody.
Oh, yeah,
it is totally different for everybody. And I'm not saying follow my example, but that's what's worked for me.
Yeah.
And I kind of like where your purpose has led you.
Yeah.
So Philo Sophie, thank you so much for sending your question, and keep sending in your questions and we will try to get them on the air. Now, Sean, you've had a pretty interesting, I know your life from one point, from military. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about how you grew up, where you grew up?
Sure. Yep. So I grew up right over in Roxbury, New Jersey, out West Jersey. Out there, I played hockey, played lacrosse. I was going to join the Marine Corps straight out of high school. My parents actually sat me down and said, hey, can you do us a favor and do 2 years of college first? After you do your 2 years of college, we'll give you our blessing, then you can join the Marine Corps. With that being said, I was like, all right. I think in their eyes, they kind of thought either A, I was going to fall in love. Well, that didn't happen. Or B, like the war was going to be over at that time, because I graduated high school in 2007. Spring break, sophomore year of college, 2009. I went home, told my parents, hey, guys, did my 2 years that you guys asked me. They're like, all right, well, can't ask you to do anything else. So you want to go, you're doing it. So right then and there, signed up.
The blessing in disguise was when the Marines turned me down.
Is that right?
I'm going to tell you why, because I had too many knee surgeries. And they turned me down because I would have been in Somalia. And thankfully that didn't happen. And it also led me, I always believe you're in where the space you're supposed to be in.
Yeah.
And the Marines wasn't for me, but I always wanted to be a Marine. But here's the downside. My grandfather was a World War II vet, and he was alive at the time.
Mine was.
And when he found out I tried to enlist, and he was not happy because he did not like officers.
Dude, I was at a wedding and a family friend slapped me across the face when he found out I was joining the Marine Corps. So he already did the initial Iraq.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so 07, you're in the middle of this.
Yeah, it's like a transition. Like, is it ending? Is it not ending? And then 09, Obama's war, we're going, and that was the surge of Afghanistan.
The funny thing is there's a very romanticized vision of what war is. Men go to war. My very good friend Mike DePalma was in Baghdad, and he had to do some, all within his duty, he had to do some stuff that there's baggage that comes along with that. He had to do some stuff over there that he still has nightmares about, 15 years later. And the reality of war is the same whether you were in a war 300 years ago, 3,000 years ago. It's the reality of war. It's violent, it's ugly, and you're going to end up taking stuff home with you. So you get to the Marine Corps. You go to PI?
Yeah, Parris Island.
You're Parris Island, so you're now Hollywood Marine?
Nope.
Okay.
Right down to Parris Island.
Happy November 10th.
Yes, sir.
One of my very good friends was a Marine. He served in the Dominican before he passed.
I don't take off for my birthday. I take off for the Marine Corps birthday.
Oh, yeah, of course. That's like God to the Marine.
Oh, yeah.
We had a Vietnam vet in here right now, and I made sure I wished him a happy. It was right around November 10th. That crazy son of a bitch brought a grenade in here that he took off of somebody in Vietnam. And I'm looking at him.
That's kind of cool.
Well, he brings this grenade in and he sets it on the table. I go, John Paulus was his name. I go, John, John, please tell me that's inert. Please tell me that's not a real grenade. He goes, it was at one time. And I said, so I'm guessing the Vietnamese officer who you took that off of didn't give it to you willingly? And he goes, no. But I'm like, you crazy motherfucker, man.
Yeah, they were checking our bags really heavy, and when we were getting out, I think we were in Kyrgyzstan when they were checking all of our stuff. So like they were making us delete pictures, videos, and all that.
So spoils of war is so much different now.
Oh yeah, we're not coming home with anything right now. It's even different now than it was in Iraq, like beginning of Iraq.
Yeah,
it drastically changed.
So my uncle was in I think when he was over in the Pacific, and he was in some of those Philippine islands,
Okay.
And I saw him when I was a kid. He had the Japanese version of a German Luger. He had 3 or 4 samurai swords. He had rising sun flags.
That's cool.
Like and I said, how did you get this home? I know somebody that shipped a motorcycle home piece by piece because it was free mail. I said, how the hell did you get home? He goes, well, I packaged it up. I put it in the mail and they shipped it home and it was waiting for me when I got back.
I'm jealous.
Yeah. But no, you got that, the spoil. I don't know when that happened, but Vietnam, they were absolutely allowed to bring shit home.
Yeah. Like I said, I think beginning of Iraq, they were still happening, but then as the years were going on and like media and videos and all that stuff, like really started becoming a thing. Cause I think right before I deployed or when I deployed is when, all the Marines were peeing on the Taliban bodies.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
So like that was a big deal. Everybody was getting pissed about that.
Well, did you ever see the movie Three Kings?
Yes.
That's the first Iraq war.
Yep.
And for those of you who haven't seen it, it's got Mark Wahlberg, Ice Cube. Was it George Clooney?
Yeah. Yeah, George Clooney with the gold, right?
Fuck him. Yeah, so they find gold in the tanks. But
he looks good though, man. Yeah. I'm like a young George Clooney. I know, I get it all the time.
Well, I don't even want to compare myself to him. I always say that, you take away his looks, his money, and whatever talent he has, and we're basically the same person.
Mm-hmm.
But in that, they discover all this stolen or Saddam gold, and they've got to figure out what to do with it. But I was just reading an article. Somebody bought an Iraqi tank. It was up for auction, and they brought it home. And as they're going through it, he did something where he's like, "Man, this is heavier than it should be." And in there was about 16 gold bars that they had it was sealed up, welded up, couldn't see it. And yeah, I think he had to give it back. So where were you deployed to?
So I did 2 deployments. My first one went to Sangin Valley, Afghanistan. You ever hear of Sangin?
No.
So Sangin, the Marine Corps Times listed as the Fallujah of Afghanistan. That was the ID, quote unquote, capital of the world at that time. Basically, every foot patrol that we did. So I was embedded in the local community, sleeping in the mud huts, that whole jazz. Like I think I my mom's gonna kill me, but I think I showered like 7 times in 6 months when I was there because it was
So
just
pretty
the
much
best.
like when you were 7 years old,
Yeah.
you just never wanted to shower and you never had to.
Yeah, I mean, it's like yesterday, right?
Yeah.
So we were actually embedded there. Like the first 3 or 4 months, we had no connection with the outside world. Like I didn't have satellite phones. It barely got passed around. So like we weren't talking to anybody. And Sengen, it was like Marja and then Sengen. Sengen had just IEDs everywhere. We would go on foot patrol, and every patrol we would find 2 to 3 IEDs.
What was the thing that drew your attention to an IED?
Basically, every single entryway to a door had an ID on it. Every single path had an ID on it. Every single corner or intersection, there was an ID. So certain things that might draw attention to it, actually, I'll rewind that real quick. Back in the fleet, back in Camp Lejeune, our senior Marines who just came back from Afghanistan were trying to train us up politely by doing cleaning up the road, right? Or cleaning up brass on the ground, stuff like that. Look for the shiny stuff. Look for the cigarette butts. Look for things that are out of place. Look for things that are linear. Look for things that are not God made in the ground. And I hated it because I'm picking up trash all the time. But I tell you what, once I got to Afghanistan, it kind of started clicking in my head. And I'll give a shout out to Corporal Rizzo real quick because I know I'm sure he'll probably listen to this. He's like, they drilled that in their head to pick up all this trash that by the time to get there, I'm looking at disturbed earth and I'm seeing a linear rope or linear wire or something like that. Quick story, my first patrol that I was out there, we got told, say, hey, if you see batteries or anything like that, pick it up because they are known to reuse the batteries for the IEDs. A 9-volt battery, all you need is 3 volts to actually set the explosion off. So I saw a battery on the ground, but they also said, hey, make sure you're probe with your K-bar. So everything we did, we'd taken 3 steps. We're going probing dirt with the K-bar, probing dirt with the K-bar.
And a K-bar is the Marine knife.
Yep.
Just look it up. I actually used to have a K-bar.
Badass.
Yeah.
So I see this battery. I take my K-bar out. I probe into the dirt, 3 inches in, 3 inches out, 3 inches in, 3 inches out, all around it. Grab it. I stick in my drop pouch, go on life patrol, come back. We debrief, after action debrief, what happened. I found this battery. I take it out and it's got a string attached to it. I'm like, day one, man. I'm like, I cut a string. It was an anti-tamper. Supposed to pull it because they knew we'd pick up the trash and it was supposed to go up. And day one, I cut that string. I was like, all right, we're here. This is real.
So that's the coolest thing I ever heard because what you did is you did the Afghanistan version of cutting the blue wire on the bomb that you see in dozens of movies in the 80s, right? Oh, cut the blue wire or the red wire? Just cut one. That's what you did.
So we actually did that a lot. Like actually, when we actually find the whole pressure plate and all that stuff, we trace it back to the homemade explosive, the HME, and then you trace that off to the actually batter source. Once you find the battery source, you have the 2 prongs on our top, like the 2 nipples, and you cut those 2 nipples off, and now you got the battery source. And you got to hope going forward that is not an anti-tamper. At that time, a lot of the IDs we found, once we got rid of that source, we could dismantle the whole thing.
Right.
So we actually did do that quite often because we couldn't wait for EOD to come out there because it's on foot patrol. To get them out there, you're talking 3-4 hours. It's not feasible.
You want to talk about something that'll pucker your asshole. Jesus.
Yeah.
But it's a different world over there, and there's a lot of chaos going on. There's very little peace. And I've spoken to enough vets who have been over there it's just a different way of living. What did being over there and being in that constant hypervigilant mindset, it had to screw with your nervous system a little bit.
Yeah. And I don't know if it screwed my nervous system or I'm broken because there's a sense of simplicity to it. There's a sense of like I miss that side of stuff. No cell phones. There's no outside world. Like I'm literally playing tag or chess with my friends, or we're playing dodgeball with rocks because we're just trying to pass the time. Like that simplicity side of it is peaceful.
But as much chaos that was going on in country is almost manageable because you cut the other chaos out.
Yeah.
That's an odd way of looking. I've never had it put that way, but it makes a lot of sense.
There is calm in the chaos if you look for it, if you find it. We'll bring up the coffee real quick. Like one of the things that we also look for, like after we go on patrol, we'd all get together and we have our after action debrief and we'd have a cup of coffee. Now we're kind of like dial it down a little bit and allow us to have that sense of we're back home now, especially after the debrief. We're just sitting there having a cup of coffee, just relaxing. Like there is a sense of peace there for sure.
That's got to be very comforting, because I'm sure there wasn't a whole lot of creature comforts over there.
No, absolutely not.
I mean, a roll of toilet paper is considered creature comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you didn't use a wiping hand like they do over there? Yeah,
No.
What's the
but,
rule? What's the rule? You never shake their left hand. Is that the rule?
Yeah. I don't remember off the top of my head, but yes, there is a rule for that for sure.
They're like, you don't shake their wiping hand. Wow.
There's also no, I'm not gonna
Now, when you're over there, you have this constant threat of IEDs, which
Yes.
means the enemy is near.
Yep.
Engaging the enemy is almost a foregone conclusion. It's going to happen at certain times. How did, especially at Camp Lejeune, how did they prep you to be prepared mentally for that?
So, again, I thank God for my seniors, because they came back from the initial push, or not an initial push. They came back from the summer of decision. They called it. They called it Obama's War. That's what it was called. And that's where they did a huge troop surge down to the southern Helmand province. And as soon as they landed, they were basically in like a 3-day worth of contact. So these guys were on the bar as far as firefights goes, and that's what they trained for, and that's what they trained us for. So my contact, the actual gunfights that I got in my first deployment, I could count on one hand.
Yeah.
I really didn't get in that many. My threat was all IEDs. But because they got into so many firefights and not that many IEDs, we overtrained the reaction to being shot at. The L-shaped ambush, like the patrol would contact left, contact right, contact front, get online, buddy rush, going back and forth, There was always hip pocket classes that we did back at the rear. We're like, hey, we got downtime. Okay, well, instead of playing video games, we're going outside. And that's all we do, just buddy rush, which is basically burpees forever. Full gear. It sucked.
But it's funny how those lessons that you thought sucked at the time, because my drill in the police academy was a guy named Jimmy Marinara, and I shout him out all the time, because he was a Force Recon Marine. Okay, so he ran our academy like it was Paris Island modified, until he got in trouble, and then it kind of eased up, because we had a high-ranking member of one of the department's daughters in there, and
Gotcha.
it was a whole thing.
That'll happen.
But he would do little things like make you hold your arms out at your side forever. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, why are you doing this? This is pure torture. And then when the lessons aren't learned right there, the lessons are realized when you get out on the street 100%. And you're like, oh, okay, so if I'm in a fight, I can hold my arm out for a very, very long time.
100%.
And I thought I was in good shape when I went into the academy. Turns out I wasn't in such good shape. Yeah.
Well, interesting, I said, as far as learning curves go, because we do have, like I said, my seniors got in those firefights all the time. They were banging and banging and banging. But then when we went to Sangan, it was just new world. Like, they need to learn how to do this too.
Yeah.
And like, our superior officers are telling us, hey, do not use your K-bars to dig in the ground. Well, we're telling you this is the best way to do it, because the metal detectors don't work. And so there was constantly adapting and overcoming. And I think with the right leadership, they allow you to adapt and overcome, which is cool.
But that's the cool thing about a good leader.
Yes.
A good leader.
So I threw it in there, man, because it's huge.
Because when I first got out on the road, I had somebody who got this. He was probably and he's still a very good friend of mine to this day. He told me, he goes, don't ever let anybody call you a rookie, because you're just coming out of the academy. While you don't have the experience, which is understandable, your book knowledge is so greater than mine. I got 20 years on. So you're going to be able to teach me things, and I'm going to be able to teach you things. So it's an ebb and flow. Too often when you go into a police department, you get the old grizzled veteran. Hey, rookie. Hey, and I just bite my lip, especially first getting on. But you would be more abreast at case law. You'd be more abreast at motor vehicle law. You would know all these little different things that they didn't know. Now, a good leader will realize that, hey, what'd you learn in the academy? Show me what you learned in the academy, and then I can work off of that. They're rare.
They're hard to come by.
They're rare, but they're invaluable.
Right.
So that was your first deployment. Where was your second deployment? The key component to any law enforcement officer being the best version of themselves is through education. Sherry Alsop is a leader in providing that education to police agencies, preparing them for the all too frequent dealings with sexual assault victims.
You've seen Sherry on episode 169 of the Suffering Podcast. She survived incest and almost daily sexual assault, so she comes from a place of experience and true understanding.
Sherry has the intelligence, commitment, and compassion to open the eyes of those on the front lines, while providing the tools to effectively deal with a difficult situation. Sherry's instruction comes from experience and multiple certifications.
Training with Sherry will offer on-site training, customized schedules, specialized instruction tailored from a victim's perspective.
You are going to hear Sherry's heart-wrenching but inspiring survivor story. Learn proprietary trauma-informed training techniques, uncovered victim-centered interview methods while earning continuing education credits according to your state guidelines. To be the best, you must learn from the best. Let Sherry also guide you through the delicate cases of sexual assault from a victim's point of view.
Be a source of comfort to those victims affected by these traumatic experiences while producing a solid investigation and uncovering details that often go unnoticed.
To find out more or to contact Sherry Alsop, go to sherryalsop.com. That's SherryAlsop.com.
Arms here, we were actually kind of doing camp security on the outside of the camp itself, Camp Dwyer, and it was all mobile patrols, 2 completely separate deployments. First deployment was drastically more dangerous and more embedded. My second deployment, then we had gyms, I had Cool Beans coffee, like I had ice cream there, like it was a great time. But then I still was able to somehow find the one IED in the middle of the desert and get our truck blown up. So like,
Oh, you got hit by an IED.
yeah. So like it was from like IED Central to like no IEDs in 3 years, and my luck, we hit that one. Luckily, nobody got seriously injured. But yeah, that was a complacency. Actually, that's exactly what it was. It was a straight up complacency move on my part as the vehicle commander.
Did they at least give you a new pair of pants, seeing how you probably shit the first pair when that thing blew up?
No, they did not, unfortunately. I should write a letter.
Yeah, that's wrong, man.
Yeah,
that's wrong. But that's a funny point, and I know I'm making a joke out of it, but I heard they were interviewing this. It's in the 50s or 40s. They were interviewing this World War I vet, and somebody who was actually in the trenches fighting a war, and one of the things he said, he goes, and he said it very old man to clean it up and stuff. He goes, you would be surprised at how many people mess their pants as soon as the rounds start going off.
So there's a rule of thumb with patrols. Always go to the bathroom before you go out of the wire. Always go to the bathroom.
And I know we're making a joke out of it, but it's a reality of war.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that you get that pop shot or that explosion happens next to you or etc. You're not expecting it. Like are you familiar with the Cooper's Color Code?
No.
So Cooper's Color Code, and it's been a while. There's 4 different colors. Cooper's Color Code is white, complacent. You and I right now. I have no fear that we're gonna get attacked right now. God, I hope not.
Well, Andrew is Puerto Rican, so I'm sure there's a knife somewhere in it. I'm just kidding, Andrew. I'm just kidding.
So Cooper Color Code white, completely complacent, right? Yellow, that would be like, hey, we stopped the car, we're coming up on it. Like, I got to be a little bit cautious, but it's not. We're going into the fight. A orange would be like, all right, we got a domestic, we're going into the house, but I'm not guns out. Like, it's not like guy with the gun domestic. Red, guns out, it's real, it's on. So you kind of have to balance yourself when you're on patrol and figure out where, and this goes law enforcement too, in my opinion. And that's why I said those examples. You have to figure out not to stay in the white, because you stay in that white, that's when it happens. And that's literally when I got blown up. I was in the white. It was nighttime. I was complacent. I was sick and tired of getting my truck stuck in the sand. And I'm like, take that path. It's the easiest path. Wrong answer. Never take the easiest path. And I was so good for half of the deployment. Don't take the easy path. But I got sick and tired of digging my truck out. So I went Cooper's Color Code white, went through, got hit.
The danger is going to hit you. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. If you're constantly walking, and we do it every day, we walk into situations in the white, we're comfortable, and the average person who is either not a first responder, and I'm not digging on these people, it's just, there's certain people who are made to do certain jobs. Being in the white and being, like my wife, when I first met my wife, I was on when I first met her. She would leave her purse on the front seat of her car and go in because she's oblivious to the dangers of the world. Now, doing what I did, I know I have the burden of knowledge, just like you have the burden of knowledge. You know that is just ripe for the picking. Somebody's going to smash your window, and even if there's nothing in your purse, you still got to replace your window.
Yeah.
It's an inconvenience. So being in the white, like in life, is just a bad way to live. You got to balance it between that orange and yellow.
I do it with my girlfriend too. Like she starts asking, "What are you doing? Why are you out so late?" I'm like, "I'm gonna go from yellow to orange right now because my danger's coming."
But think about when you go to a restaurant.
Yeah.
Okay. Think about when you go to here's how you tell the cop in the room. He's never got his back to the door. All right. The only time I have my back to the door is if you and I are out having a cup.
Now, is that good training or is that paranoia?
It's a little of both. It's a little of both. I'm going to be
Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're 100% right. It's a little of both. I can't say that it's totally not paranoid, but again, I got the burden of knowledge. The only time I will allow myself to have my back to the door, I know who you are and I know what you're capable of. If you and I are sitting down having a cup of coffee, I will feel more than comfortable having my back to the door, knowing that you got your eyes on the door, and vice versa with the people I hang around.
And that's where you're dropping down from yellow to white, or maybe orange to yellow. You're still don't like having it, so you're still gonna be on edge. But I'm gonna stay in that yellow area.
You always try to blade yourself. So I gotta see the door. And I'm watching everybody who comes in. I still do it. And I'm 11 and a half years gone. I still do it. It's something that never, ever leaves you. Just like you'll see old military vets, old Vietnam vets. They still have it. You know, that's why I like putting the guests, especially when they're military. Guests are always sitting where you're sitting, but you can always see that door. You can always, I trust these guys enough to watch my back coming in. So, you know, that second deployment, it's a different type of policing. You know, it's a different type of policing, but you made it through with only getting blown up once.
Yep.
God bless you. You come home. When was it time to leave the military, to move on?
That was an extremely difficult decision for me. Arguably one of the hardest decisions I've had in my life was that. Because again, going forward or going reverse, that was my life's goal or purpose in my head, was to join the Marine Corps. When I got in, it was during a time of war. Like we were buddy rushing in the quad. We were constantly training for war, doing all this stuff. That was it. When I came out of that second deployment, it was gear inspections, uniform inspections, march to the chow hall. It became more of a peacetime warframe. And that was a difficult transition for me, getting the taste of just combat.
Well, Jesse Ventura puts it perfectly. He goes, I was a great wartime SEAL.
Yeah.
I was a horrible peacetime SEAL. Because then you got to shave, you got to make sure your stuff's squared away, your gig line's right.
Dude, I've met old-time Marines from pre-9/11 who have asked me, like, what's your 7th general order? What's your 8th general order? Or asking me, like, all these knowledge-based questions about uniforms and stuff like that. I'm like, I have no idea, man, because I didn't pay attention to that. I paid attention to get my gun up, like making sure that machine gun's up and ready, you know, looking for IDs, stuff like that. And like, it's just a different mentality. And bless their hearts too, but like, it's just two completely different Marines.
Yeah, it's a tough. You're either one or the other.
Right.
You really are, and maybe that's why my grandfather hated officers so much, because they were on the administrative side. He was the guy fighting.
So there is something that we have called security forces. You ever hear of them?
No.
So the Marine Corps is security forces.
I feel really stupid. You're telling me all this stuff I don't know.
You're good. So the Marine Corps is a branch called the security forces, right? It is an infantry organization. What they do, they have a couple different subsections. One of their main subsections, though, is guarding embassies, right? Guarding embassies, guarding nukes, guarding the president. Those are all encompassed of the security forces. With that being said, they're still 0311s as far as MOS goes. They're still infantrymen. So they do 2 to 3 years in the security force, and then they come over to the regular infantry. Most of those guys who come over are coming over as E4s, as corporals. So like for me, I already did one combat deployment. I'm an E3. I'm running a squad as a E3. And then I have all these guys coming in from security forces who are just standing post guarding nukes or something like that. And now they're in charge of me. So it's very similar to the mindset of, especially guys in Vietnam and World War II for that matter, when they have these officer drops who are now in charge of them, who haven't done anything. They weren't there at D-Day, you know, they weren't there for Hugh City, like they weren't there for any of that, but now they're in charge of you. And I'm like, putting one's ego aside is extremely hard. And to get that person to come over and them understand, hey, this guy just did a deployment, let's listen to him, even though I outrank him, that's extremely difficult too.
So I think the most apt, from what you're telling me and what I hear from other vets, And mind you, I had a World War II vet who was at D-Day in the Battle of the Bulge sitting right where you are, Bob
I
Gibson.
feel like I should stand up.
He still calls me. Like he's 100. He'll be 102 on September 4th. All right. He still calls me, checks up on me. So when nothing's going on, the worst thing for a soldier is idle time. And so the most apt description I heard of police work, it was applied to police work, but it also applies to veterans as well. It's absolute mind-numbing boredom interrupted by brief moments of horror. Okay?
Yeah.
But when you have that downtime, the idle mind does the devil's work. And even for him, like he got caught, and he was in here when he was 99. And he was telling us when he was in France right after D-Day, there's a lot of downtime. He stole a Mercedes and got caught by, I think, a 2-star or something like that. Got busted down, did whatever he did. So after the Battle of the Bulge, he starts telling the same story. And then I got caught stealing a car, and I'm like, oh shit, he's foggy and he's telling the same story. No, he got caught stealing another car. So that's universal. That's what you look for. You look for, yes, it is a different war, it is a different way of fighting. Soldier's a soldier, whether they're a soldier today or whether they were a soldier 200 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
There's those moments where you're all alone, and that's why that social media question was so important. There's those moments where you're all alone and you have to explore your own mind.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a dangerous thing to somebody who has constant hypervigilance.
And I think the only times that I think I can really get that clear focus is I like to do ice baths. I know that's so cliche because that's kind of everybody's doing it right now.
I do it. I'm a big believer.
Ice baths and rock climbing. Rock climbing for me is huge because concentration. I have to look for that next rock where I'm going to fall, I'm going to fail. And I can't think about anything else. And it's good for the soul too, just my stress. Just focus on the task at hand. Because when I sit there in my car, when I sit there, I'm like, my head is literally going 1,000 miles an hour. I can't focus on one thing at once because I have to do so much. I just make list after list.
That's what I do. Exactly what I do. But try this. So this actually works when you don't have a whole lot of time. That's why this time of year is so valuable. So I told you I meditate every day, but I'm an extremist, right? So I either have to have an external force pushing in on me in order for me to concentrate. So what I'll do in this weather, 20-degree weather, I will go outside in the morning and I will go outside in my underwear. 20 degrees, unless it's real windy.
Can you get your address here?
So yeah, don't ever look outside. But I will sit outside. And here's the thing. I have to concentrate. Just like when you're in an ice bath, you have to just calm your mind, control your breathing, and concentrate. Because if you don't do that and you start thinking about where you are, you will get cold like this. And that's how I was able to break everything out of my mind, knowing that I had to maintain some semblance of peace inside my own head.
Yeah.
But ice baths have a lot of different benefits.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So when lockdown happened, I was training for a triathlon. All the gyms closed, but we only thought we were going to be closed down for a couple of weeks. I started swimming in a lake. Big shout out to the Lake Intervale community when you saw a crazy guy swimming around in March in a wetsuit because the water was 45 to 50. I would take a temperature of it. Man, I'll tell you what, when I got out, I jackhammered for 20 to 30 minutes, but I'd never slept so good. I didn't have any inflammation, no pain, no nothing. It was beautiful. Huge benefits. Yeah. And it resets your nervous system too. So you get out, tough decision, getting out of the Marines, everything that you work towards, you've accomplished it.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden you're like, well, what do I do now?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's where I was like, you know what? The war at that point in time, the war is coming in. Like real deal combat operations were coming to an end. Except unless you're SF or something like that, then you're still getting after it. So I'm like, maybe it's time to start a family. So I decided to get out and try to go that route, right? I was very fortunate enough to take the civil service test. I got picked up relatively quickly. I think I took the test. I got out in February, took the test in March, got picked up end of June.
Veterans preference. That's all there was back then. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went right there to the academy, started dating a girl. Again, I'm like, okay, cool. This is why.
So this is where your life starts going downhill? No, I'm just kidding you. I'm just kidding you. I don't know her. I'm just kidding.
So I started dating this girl, got out of the Marine Corps. I'm like, okay, starting a family, dating a girl. Okay, path, got a good job, path, everything's going. Okay, I guess this is what's next in my life, got out, got very fortunate enough to get put on loan to work narcotics. I'm like, cool, this is awesome again. I like this. Came back, and then I was hit that rut though. I shouldn't say I hit that rut. I've started to kind of hit a little bit of a rut right there for transition issues wise. And then I became single. She broke things off me. I'm like, oh shit. Like now everything just is not going according to plan in my head.
Well, you're used to having that operational plan, and all
Yeah.
of a sudden it gets thrown into chaos.
Like I said, my entire life, my plan was to join the Marines. Went to college, got a D, don't care, join the Marines. I'm like, failed the class, don't care, join the Marines. Like, didn't care about anything. Like, that's what I'm doing. So I'm like, okay, everything's just gonna happen. It's gonna work out. And then it started not working out, and that's where it started really having my transition issues with that. And I think that's a lot to do with the purpose again, which I'll go back to in a second. So while I was going through that, I then randomly, thank God, I saw my friend's post on Facebook. He goes, "Hey guys, I'm going to the Amazon next week. Thank you everybody for your donations." I'm like, dude, I need that spot right now. So I hit him up. Hey man, what's going on the Amazon? Like, I would love to go with you. Buddy from the Marines too. He goes, can you raise, I think it was like $1,300 by next week? Yeah, no problem, dude. Paycheck, road job, we're going. You know, like, so I went down to the Amazon.
But I was watching a video of you talking about this.
Yeah.
I was watching some video, and this is years ago, of you talking about what you were going to do in the Amazon. I'm like, that's pretty.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably maybe 2015, give or take. I think, it was.
The video I saw was 2016 or 2017, but it could have been filmed in.
That was Ethiopia.
Whatever you were in a car. You were in a patrol car talking about it.
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah, I'll find it. Maybe we'll dig it up. We'll put it on there.
Tag me again. I had my transition right there where I was like, I need what I'm doing as far as work goes right now for me just wasn't hitting. It wasn't fulfilling me. It wasn't fulfilling my purpose at that time. And growing up, my parents always said, hey, every time Sean started getting depressed, we had to take him on vacation somewhere. He needed the travel. It wasn't until years later that I'm like, I just need to travel. Like that is that is what clears me personally. Not to go off topic. So I go with this organization called Wine to Water. Phenomenal organization. I could dive into it if you want, or I could skip it.
Well, no, you were digging wells, correct?
Yeah. So I go with this organization, Wine to Water, down to the Amazon. I'm all throughout Peru, Brazil, Colombia. And like just as a kid growing up and hearing the word Amazon, seeing it on TV, and then like actually being in the Amazon River, I'm like, I want to do a backflip. Yeah, I'm gonna do a backflip. So I did a backflip right there in the Amazon River. I'm like, this is insane. Like, I can't believe I'm here. But then that first day that we were there, we go through a graveyard. We kind of do a local tour of the local village. And again, it's living dirty again, which it's simple, the simplicity side of it. My phones don't work.
There's a beauty to that, though.
Dude, beauty. So we're going through this graveyard, and the translator is sitting there looking at me because he sees that I'm dumbfounded. And I'm like trying to like read all these gravestones. I'm like, why is this all kids? Like, I don't understand. It's just a graveyard just for kids. And he goes, no, this just, there are years that people die from dysentery and malaria. Like, this are the make or break years is right here. I think it's like 12 to 14, you know, like they're either going to make it past that or they're not.
Well, there's a place in Parsippany called Little Lost Cemetery. Are you familiar with it?
Yes.
Okay. So it's in Weird, New Jersey, and they didn't. So what had happened is where Jersey City Reservoir is, there used to be an orphanage, and kids would die. It says if you go to this little graveyard, everybody's between like 3 and 12. It was the flu epidemic where they started losing a bunch of kids. This cemetery had been lost, and then they started building Route 80, and they discovered all these little headstones. It is somber. It is an eye-opener, and you're like, holy shit, these kids, they didn't even get a chance to have their first love, their first kiss, their first drink, nothing.
There's something about kids passing away that hits everybody in the wrong spot.
Yeah, it's just because I'm 50 years old. If I go, I don't have any plans to, but if I go tomorrow, I've lived some good times, right? I've experienced a lot. I've experienced love. I experienced fatherhood. I experienced all these different things. Okay, it's still tragic. I'm not old enough yet, but it's not as tragic as somebody who's 5, right, who didn't get that opportunity. Right. So, and it doesn't matter where you are. So you get a whole new appreciation when you see stuff like that.
100%. Not only seeing that, like that hit me right then and there, right? And then we start walking through the community even more so. And a lot of the local populace in that area had a loose understanding, like the water is bad, don't drink it. So they were trying to dig their own holes in the dirt. I mean, you see some wells being dug. These guys are digging holes in the dirt and then filling that up with water and then putting another hole right next to it and trying to filter the water literally with screen filters to go that one, thinking that one's clean. Meanwhile, they're drinking out of the Amazon River, which is as brown as that box.
Mm-hmm.
And even the water that they're trying to filter is as brown as that box. Still, it's not getting any better. So I met some incredible people there. They are Wine2Water is loosely religious based as well. I mean, it is. And so I started getting down the religious side a little bit more in my life as well, which was nice to see, nice to feel, I should say. But the last day we were there, we were able to turn the water on for the school. And this school, all these kids came out and we made a slip and slide, and we're throwing the kids up and down the slip and slide. I'm throwing them in the Amazon River. Like, we're having a great time. And I'm like, this is therapeutic for me. The smile on these kids' face, not really, they didn't really understand either, I don't think, that we just probably saved their life from dysentery, malaria, and all other waterborne diseases. Knowing that we just were able to accomplish that and save their lives after seeing that graveyard and seeing that smile on their face, put a smile on my face. I think we were talking before a little bit, like, smiles are contagious. Like, they really are, man. Like, if we start laughing, somebody else might walk in the room. They have no idea what we're laughing at, but they see us smiling. They're going to start smiling. And so now I'm going with that. And at this point in time, I've lost more friends to suicide than I have in combat. To date, I'm high teens, low 20s worth of friends who've killed themselves. And for the life of me, there's a period of time I couldn't figure out why. Because like I knew exactly what a lot of those guys physically did on deployment, or saw, or didn't see for that matter. So like I'm racking my brains. I'm like, I don't think that would mess him up that bad, or that guy didn't do anything. Why'd he kill himself? Like I don't understand. And it wasn't until I came home, or until that moment really with the kids, and I'm like, purpose. They don't have purpose. Like they just lost their purpose was in the Marines. They got trained for this. They loved what they were doing. That was their purpose. And then they got out, and that purpose dropped because maybe they got a job. Maybe it was the same thing as me, where like they hit a job where they just weren't like not fulfilled, or they got that divorce and they thought they're the they thought that was it for them, and it's not. Or they just are in the middle of nowhere. They don't have good family support. Like I was very fortunate enough to be in New Jersey, where there's such a high populated area that I could get a job, and those guys maybe could not have gotten a job. I don't know. I'll never know those answers.
I watched that with my partner. I watched him slide. Okay. Being a police officer was everything to me. He put his whole purpose into being a police officer. Then he's in a shooting, so he has the damage from his shooting. And I watch him just travel down because he had nothing to give. And part of it was this show. Part of this show did give him some purpose. When you touch somebody's life the same way you did with those kids, when you affect somebody's life, it starts to build. It's like a seed that's planted in your heart and it just keeps growing and growing. And that's the purpose. Like that's what that seed is. You're planting purpose. And if you nurture it enough and you nurture it the right way, it's going to grow. With Mike, he would do everything to self-sabotage because he couldn't find that true blue purpose. And unfortunately, on May 9th, 2024, the worst of the worst happened. The thing that I was trying to avoid happened anyway. And there's nothing you can do.
So I'm going to fast forward my story a little bit to kind of piggyback off that. I was full-blown running this nonprofit at that point in time, where I was combating veteran suicide by combating world water crisis. I had all these resources available. I had everything lined up. I had all these different nonprofits, etc. Like I'm paying for, you had nothing to pay for to go overseas to Dominican Republic, Amazon, etc., Ethiopia, whatever. Or just call me. And one of my friends killed himself. And I'm like, that point in time, I like anger, frustration, emotion.
You run the gambit.
Everything was going, I'm like, you know what I was talking to you. I don't understand why don't you know this? And it honestly probably wasn't until like 2 years ago that I finally was like, it is what it is. Like,
so it's a trust issue. Okay, so it's a trust issue. Mental health is in vets, police, doesn't matter. It's a trust issue. So if I'm having some thoughts Do I trust you enough that, number one, you're not going to judge me? Number two, you're not going to turn me in. And do I trust you enough to tell you that stuff? Unfortunately, when you get into that spot, you're with each day, your peripheral vision just comes in until you just see that, and that's it. And so I know all those emotions. I've run all those emotions. I'm like, asshole, I have all these resources at the tip of my fingers, and we're giving them out to people to take. You're not okay if you don't take care of yourself. You can't help anybody else.
But here's what I want you to do. And if people listening at home, do this too. Take both your hands, cover your face like this, cover your eyes, right? Slowly bring your fingers together. And I guarantee you open your eyes with your fingers like this, you'll still see light. There is a small bickering of light there, and you have to find that light, and you have to keep pushing forward with that light. Well,
that light is your purpose. That is exactly. And that's why it makes so much sense with the coffee. Don't discount the beauty of coffee. And I know this is the suffering of coffee, but it's not about coffee. You could get coffee anywhere.
Coffee.
Coffee's coffee. Even bad coffee's good coffee. And
we'll agree to disagree, but
you know what I'm saying. Like, there's sometimes you just need coffee, and you go to one of those stores, and it's just like, it is what it is. Coffee is just a little bit of peace. And if you sit down with somebody and have a cup of coffee, that's why, so I'm sober 11 years. And
congratulations.
Thank
awesome.
you. But it's easy. Like, everybody says, hey, let's go grab a drink. Well, how about we sit down and have a cup of coffee? And I do that all the time. When my wife and I are having difficult times, she's, listen, she's Italian. She likes to eat. She likes to go out to a nice dinner. I said, well, why can't we just have a cup of coffee? Because it's loud in a restaurant, but it's quiet in a coffee shop. And coffee is not coffee. Coffee is you and I get to sit down undistracted and have a conversation, a real conversation, where some of those suicides that you have dealt with could have been cured over coffee. Forward.
Coffee is always surrounded by community. We are the community, and we are surrounded. So
you go from digging wells to starting Abrusci's coffee.
Mm-hmm.
How the hell? Like, that's a big one. And I'm fascinated by this. The Suffering Podcast welcomes our newest sponsor, KetoRevive. Ketamine infusions that are personalized, accessible, and holistic. Proven treatments for post-traumatic stress, depression, anxiety, chronic pain, neuropathic pain, and so much more. KetoRevive is physician-operated with customized treatments tailored to you and an outstanding support system. KetoRevive offers first responder special discounts. So try something new. Proven treatments. Located in Wyckoff, New Jersey. To find out more, visit KetoRevive at ketorevive.com. Let's start healing today.
Throughout my travels, right, the one thing that was always there and always in the center of the community was coffee, with whatever I did. That community was the Marine Corps. That was my peace of home. That was bringing me back, right? Left there, going down to the Amazon. We would bust our ass setting up this well, right? And then we would always have, okay, coffee break. Let's just talk about what just happened. And we would actually sit there and debrief. Hey, what are you feeling right now? Because a lot of people have never been to quote unquote third world country. A lot of people have never lived without electricity. So let's just debrief. So I'm like, coffee was in front of us again. I'm like, okay, there it is again. It's phenomenal, right? Because I'm in the
There's your reoccurring theme.
Correct. Into law enforcement, same concept. How many times did you meet up with your guys? Hey, dude, we got to square things away with us because you and I aren't good right now, or that was wild. Let's go grab a cup of coffee. Like, hey, you want a cup? Yeah, I'll grab it. Okay, etc. Like, you always have that cup of coffee in between the two.
And it gives you something to look forward to. Say, hey, listen, I'm going to be over your house in a couple minutes. I'll grab you a cup of coffee. How do you take it?
Yeah.
And then you sit down and go through it. But do you remember the movie Dances with Wolves?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to show you how important coffee is. And this is, I know it's fictional, but it's definitely based in reality. When the Native Americans came over to his hut, what's the first thing that he gave them besides sugar?
I don't remember. Shit.
He's grinding coffee beans. And he's giving them their first taste of coffee, and he's throwing sugar in the coffee. And that was a way of connection, because that's what it is. Coffee is
Honorable.
connection.
So when I went to Ethiopia, again with Wine to Water, we're setting up wells there. These local families would take us in, and most of these families had like tuberculosis and stuff. Like they were not, in America's eyes, they weren't living their best life, but in their eyes, they were living their best life, you know. And I could go off on that one, but they invite us in, and they are actually grinding and roasting coffee right then and there with us. Like, it is a 30-minute process. They have a cast iron skillet. They're right over an open fire, and they are roasting coffee right then and there for us, because that is the most honorable, traditional thing that they could do for us. They can't give us a 5-course dinner, but they can make us a cup of coffee because coffee's local there. Granted, they were closer to a salt mine than a sugar mine, so we're drinking coffee with salt, and that was a whole nother experience. But when I saw that, I'm like, I hate saying, like, they don't have a pot to piss in some of the areas I was in, but like, they didn't have a lot to give us, and they wanted to make it special for us. And it wasn't like a big show or anything like that. It was intimate. It was something one-on-one or with a group. Like, hey, we want to give you guys something because you just brought clean water to us, and you're going to help my kids live longer. And
It's called gratitude.
exactly.
No, I'm sure they had gratitude for you, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your gratitude.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Your gratitude. Do you see how gratitude gets they're giving you that coffee because they're grateful for what you did. But what you're getting, the gratitude that you're getting, is so far beyond, and you're not asking for it, but you're getting so much more gratitude because that's something special. And I just want to tell you a very, very quick story. And this is going to speak to those moments of peace that coffee give us today. I'm in Tennessee. I'm by Overlook Mountain. And it was a 2-hour drive for me, and I just want to stretch my legs. I see this, okay, cool, I'll go to the top of the mountain. It's beautiful. There's this old souvenir shop, and it was my son's birthday coming up. I wanted to get him something special. So I go in there, and there's all these locally harvested Civil War artifacts because there was a battle fought there. And this woman, I get to talking to her. I tell her I just want to get something special. She opens up this box, and she says, you can have 2 things in here. Very nice people in Tennessee. You can have 2 things in here. You don't pay me for it. So first thing she gives me is a mini ball, which is going to be cool to a 12-year-old. Second thing she gives me is a clay pipe. And she sat and we looked at, and I'm holding this clay pipe. Now, mind you, it had it stamped on there, JD, my son's initials are James Donaldson. But then I'm looking at this pipe. I'm like, in the middle of this battle, this guy, and they took care of their pipes. That was their thing of peace. They didn't have coffee.
It's a big deal.
They had tobacco, and so they protected them. They curled them up in their uniform, and I'm looking at this, and I'm holding this. I'm like, okay, if this was so special, and I'm holding it right now, chances are this poor devil is dead. And I'm like, in the chaos, just like when you were in Afghanistan, the chaos was in the calm was your coffee. In the chaos of Overlook Mountain, the pipe was his peace. And when we started talking about doing this, I'm thinking, I'm looking at coffee, and I get it. Like, I got the concept of why you got so into coffee, because, and I didn't even hear all these things, all these reoccurring themes throughout here. So you're there, you're in Ethiopia. How does it translate into your own coffee company? Was it just an idea?
No, so it still kept pushing the rock down the road, right? Like the can, I should say. So I kept going with it. I kind of pulled the pedal off a little bit from running the veteran chapter of the nonprofit after my friend had killed himself. And then I got put on into a federal agency, and I got fortunate enough to start doing operations down in Colombia, and I meet some really important people really cool people down in Colombia. Came back, and I was like, you know what, man, I could leave in 5 years. So I'm kind of thinking for that next step as far as to get that retirement setup going. But then also I'm like, and more importantly, actually, I should say, I love doing nonprofit work. I thoroughly love doing nonprofit work, but I love meeting founders and people who are in the nonprofit world, because they're not getting, at least founders, when they start it, they're not getting paid when they start. Like, they are just doing it because they feel there's a mission, and that motivates the hell out of me. So I kept playing around with it. I'm like, man, how do I get this? How can I relate coffee to the nonprofit stuff? Because I have a direct line down from Columbia up here. I literally call the guys on WhatsApp, see they have available, and they'll ship it up. I got that. I'm like, I want to get back in the nonprofit world. I work full time. I'm like, coffee's surrounded by community. That's been my life. Everywhere I've been, coffee has always been there. As we've been talking, it's always been surrounding my community. So what I'm doing now is every other month I work with a different nonprofit. And I do that because I want to hear their mission. I want to hear their story. And I'm like 2 steps away from starting a podcast where I can start interviewing these different guys for these nonprofits, because I almost feel like I'm not even doing that good of a job telling their story as much as I want to. But for the 2 months I work with them, I let them use my page as another form of broadcasting, more or less. So everything they post, I post. Anything they feel that they need to tell, I try to tell, or I tell my version of their nonprofit as well. I sell bags on behalf of them, where I literally take their bag or take their logo, I put it on there, and I mix it up with my logo. So right now, I'm working with 11th Hour Rescue. 11th Hour Rescue is right here in Morris County, Mount Olive. Dog rescue, cat rescue.
Who can't get behind that?
I like dogs.
I like dogs. I like dogs better than people.
So $2 for each one of these bags sold goes right back to them at the end of the month.
So you did something really important. Okay, there's a million nonprofits out there, and many of these nonprofits are all doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. And that's why nonprofits don't fail. So you have 2 types of nonprofits. You have 2 types of nonprofits. You have the ultra big ones that are maybe giving out 5% of what they bring in, and they're taking it. It's a greed thing. Mm-hmm. And listen, there's a special place in hell for those people. And then you have your smaller nonprofits that are really, they feel compelled in order to try to make a difference in this world, why we're here, and stuff like that. That's the meat and potatoes of nonprofits. I want to help. I want to do something. This is my plan.
Yeah. So, and something I skipped over right there too, and I want to bring back, is there are so many nonprofits that run parallel. Mm-hmm. They run parallel. They have the same mission statement, the same good-hearted people working. And I'm sure if they met, they would be best friends, because they are both doing it for free, because it has to get done. Right. If not me, then who? They know it has to get done.
They should sit at the table and say, okay, how do we work together?
So we take the coffee, we put it in front of them. Let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. And that is what I'm trying to do with this. Every time I broadcast one of these nonprofits that I'm working with, everybody who I just worked with is now seeing them. Oh, wait, this makes sense.
Now you're building a community.
Building a community, A, right? B, I was working with Warrior Strong. Warrior Strong, they do a lot of adaptive fitness training for amputees. Getting amputees in water or whatever the hell. Tyler Vargas?
Yeah.
So they worked with him, all right, getting his physical training certification.
I think Warrior Strong worked with a guest we had in here, Earl Granville.
Maybe, I don't know.
Earl Grant, kind of around the cinder block. He was National Guard, and he got hit by an IED, and his leg is gone.
So, and that's right up their alley.
But
right?
He's a sick motherfucker, though. When he got it amputated, he got flown to Germany, and they said, the doctor says, we got to take your leg off. And he goes, well, can I keep it? And they're like, well, if you keep it, you're not going to be able to walk in. He goes, no, I understand you got to cut it off. I just want to keep it. Can we put it in a jar?
Hell yeah.
Oh, he's a sick motherfucker.
Get some formaldehyde.
Yeah.
So then, like, another organization is Reps for Responders, where you've had Nick Ricchetti on.
I know Nick and Frank Voce.
Awesome. Both of them. Awesome guys, right? So now here's 2 organizations that help out veterans, combat veteran suicide, combat law enforcement suicide. They're kind of tiptoeing the line of running right next to each other. Then I started working with Operation Pay It Forward. They take veterans deep sea fishing, hiking, hunting, getting veterans back outside and back surrounded by their community.
Like what you did by going to the Amazon. It was the same deal.
Same concept, right?
Yeah.
They're all right in the same wheelhouse. So every time I talk to these guys and I'm telling them this is what my mission statement is, and actually next month I'm working with Team Foster, and they're big with service dogs for veterans too.
But you're doing a couple different things, because outside of the good that you're doing with your coffee is really delicious. Like I've never had peppermint in coffee before, and I drink my coffee black, and it's fantastic. I'm afraid that I'm not sleeping tonight.
Probably accurate. Yeah.
It's I'm pretty, like, I'm jacked up on Mountain Dew right now. It's not bad.
Robert Dale.
So outside of all that stuff, it's fantastic coffee. Like, it's high quality coffee.
Thank you.
Now do you make K-Cups?
I do not make K-Cups, no.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to get it, and I'm gonna have to make.
You can do the reusable ones.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna have to do, which is better. I drink another brand of coffee that's veteran owned. Mm-hmm. I won't say their name because
it's okay.
We're all about Abrusci's coffee today, but I drink that because it's veterans owned, but it's also good coffee. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And So the coffee mission statement is beautiful. I mean, it is really a beautiful thing, but it has to have quality behind it. And what I'm drinking is really good. If your other stuff is like this, you hit a home run.
Yeah. So we dabble with a couple different coffees as well. Like I said, I got the direct connection right from Jericho, Antigua, Colombia to myself. Go down to port, pick it up, I roast it. So I do get some high end beans too from them, where they have micro lots. So you could definitely try that as well if you've never tried like a honey process or something like that, or a natural process coffee.
What do you like? Jack Carr put honey in your coffee?
No. So coffee comes in cherries, actually.
Yeah, I've seen it before. I've seen it before. Juan Valdez would stay over my house every summer, so I knew exactly.
He's a nice guy,
everything about
right?
it. Yeah, he's a good
Scholar
guy.
and a gentleman.
Yeah, you always say buenos dias every morning. It was great. So where can our audience get and support Abrusci's coffee?
Abrusciscoffee.com.
Very easy.
That's it, man.
You have become a conduit doing good for yourself, because this is all good for your soul, right? You're doing good for other people. You're bringing people together with this black manna from heaven. It really is. Listen, if you're a coffee guy, and I say if you don't drink coffee, especially if you're a cop, because there's a couple of them out there, they don't drink coffee. I'm like, are you even American?
I even started floating with decaf too, personally, because it's that tasty, and because I have to drink so much coffee.
You're like on a 3-hour sleep.
I do a lot of samples all day. It's a thing.
So we are coming to the end of this thing. So make sure you go into abrusciscoffee.com, get it, pick it up, support you, and support the nonprofits that you're working for, because that is a beautiful thing.
Thank you. We also do cold brew kegerators too. We're looking to get kegerators inside your house.
I saw you set one of
inside
those
your
up.
Stores. Yeah.
That's cool as shit.
We do it for their employees, for like employee perks as well. Or if you're just looking to sell cold brew too.
And you go out to like festivals and stuff,
right?
right?
Yeah, I do pop-ups all the time. People want me to do pour-overs at their house or party, whatever.
No kidding.
Yeah, we do. The big thing that I just started jumping into is party favors.
We're going to talk afterwards, because I think I got something for you.
Let's do it, man. Yeah,
I
party favors for weddings. I take whatever logo you want. I could take this logo, put it on a party favor, pop it out for whatever event.
So that's beautiful. Like, that's a beautiful thing, because everybody, and better than like making your own liquor, which isn't healthy.
Yeah.
A lot of people do it, and God bless them. But like I said, we're coming to the end of this thing here, and you've had this journey from finding purpose after purpose after purpose until finally you're going to hit on one. But there's been a lot of suffering along the way, and you've witnessed a lot of suffering along the way. So tell me, what has your suffering taught you? Because I think there's a lesson in all suffering.
I'm going to revert back to that purpose. I think that I know I probably beating dead horse with it. My suffering has taught me that purpose comes in chapters, and there's going to be a purpose in that chapter. It might not be there till the end of the chapter, but I'm going to find that. And then I'm going to flip that page, and I'm going to start a new chapter and keep going with it.
Well, I certainly appreciate what you're doing. I love what you're doing. I love coffee, and this is going to probably be my new go-to coffee. So I'm going to go on the website. I'm going to order it right when we're done.
Right on. Yeah, we got a couple stores out there too. Serbo's in Parsippany. They'll actually have us there every weekend in the springtime. We'll have somebody stationed there.
Which one? The one on 46?
202.
The one on 202. Where? Oh, Serbo's Lumber. Serbo's Lumber.
No, not Serbo's Lumber. Serbo's Nursery.
Serbo. Oh, is it, did they? That's. Oh, I didn't know about that one. Okay. All right. Well, you know what? That's cool too, because like you get these fall festivals and stuff like that, and you get a lot of New York people, and they're kind of
I got you.
Whatever. Hey, listen, as long as it's going to a good cause. Yeah. Sean, thank you so much for coming in.
Me.
I really appreciate you. I'm going to be watching you. I'm going to be supporting you. I'm going to be cheering you on the entire time. And anything that I can do to help Abrusci's Coffee, you just let me know. You say the word.
I appreciate it, brother. Thanks for having me.
All right. And that's going to do it for this episode of The Suffering Podcast, The Suffering of Coffee with Sean Abrusci. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. Never put your purpose in something that ends. Find calm in the chaos. A quiet mind breeds dangerous thoughts. Seeing the world gives you perspective. Coffee is connection. But most importantly, find your purpose. And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount on your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Clapper, OnlyFans. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson, and of course, follow the Suffering Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.